Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about the push-up because I've had a few people ask me lately, why don't you ever program the push-up? Why don't you advise people to do push-ups? You never even talk about it. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skill at my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And it's a good question because I do tell people that the majority, if not all of the exercises that you do, unless you have a specific reason to do otherwise, should probably be barbell movements or weighted body weight exercises. In other words, some exercise where you move your body through space, like a dip, a pull-up, a chin-up, a glute ham raise, something like that, to where you can add resistance by adding weights to your body in some way. And even weight vests and stuff run out real quick on exercises like that because we're trying to get brutally strong on them, right? We need to be adding not just 10 or 20 pounds. We want to eventually be able to get to 100 pounds or more on some of these exercises. That's your ideal situation. So since push-ups move the body through space, why don't I recommend them? In fact, they add extra core because they're replicating a plank. What's the problem? The problem we run into is multifold in nature. Number one, they can be hard on the wrists with no real benefit. There's no real benefit to doing a push-up compared to other exercises, and the lack of the ability to safely load them. That's your other big issue you run into. That's the big issue we run into. And they can just be largely replaced with dips. Like, other than, again, trying to get a plank in there, but if we're doing all these other exercises, you're getting a lot of core work. And you can always do planks. You can always do planks if you really want that movement for, or lack of movement for building your core up. That's fine, you can add that. But as far as the push-ups go, number one, the wrist problems. I mean, your hands are flat on the floor or you're stuck making a fist, and again, you're going to find that's not going to be the same on your wrist as doing other exercises. And you've got to get all that into position, get resistance on top of you, because sitting around doing 30, 40, 50 push-ups is not going to give you the same strength, the same performance, the same muscle mass as getting your weighted dip up to 150 pounds, to getting your bench press up to 300 pounds. It is not going to do the same thing, not even by a long shot. I'm not saying they don't have their place for maybe some conditioning work, but the question we've got to ask here, lots of things can be done for conditioning work, right? Almost what you choose to do for conditioning as far as the movement patterns oftentimes doesn't even matter that much for your conditioning. So we're kind of falling over in the area of like a burpee or something at this point. That's fine if you want to do it for conditioning, but understand that you're not training. You are not programming something to maximize strength and performance when we're doing GPP style conditioning work. And a push-up can have its place in there. But when you start comparing it to these other things, again, the wrists become a problem. And people are like, well, people make devices, these perfect push-up devices and everything. Right, yeah, now we're buying extra devices for one exercise that is still an inefficient exercise in terms of loading. So you're now buying extra equipment and devices and everything that you have to store everything else that's still an inferior exercise. So that's kind of silly because we still run into the issue of how in the hell do you load it? You have someone sit on your back, do you have someone stack plates on your back? Because you're not going to do a backpack. People say, well, I could always put plates in a carrier on my back. It's like, you're not going to get enough weight to get real resistance there. So what if you manage to add a 45-pound plate to your back? Do you really think 45 pounds on a push-up is significant resistance? You're at most using half of your body weight. I expect novice lifters on my free programs to be benching over 200 pounds for work sets at the end of their first year in the gym. You guys see the problem we're getting to here? So you're talking about at this point, since it's putting half your body weight, if you weigh 200 pounds, that means you get the equivalent. You're going to be doing rep work with push-ups all the way chest to the floor with over 100 pounds on your back to get the equivalent strength of what we get just with a barbell, right? Well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to work. How are you going to get that weight on your back? So again, it becomes kind of a silly exercise outside of conditioning at a certain point. It is not a strength or a size exercise. You just can't load it. We run into the same issues when people say, well, you could always do them one arm. Like if you wanted to build more resistance, you could do them up on a couch, turn it into an incline. You could learn to do them with one arm. Here's my problem with one arm movements. I agree with the starting strength guys on this one. One arm and one leg exercises, in my opinion, lead to imbalances. They tend to oftentimes lead to core imbalances. But in this case, when you're dealing with a lot of these upper body movements, you favor your weaker or your stronger side differently. So in other words, you might think that you're doing the same movement, but the side that you're stronger on, you are going to have a different range of motion. You're going to have a different angle. You're going to brace it different, and you're going to end up training your stronger side with more resistance when you switch on one arm to the other instead of doing a movement where you can maintain everything even, right? Which you can do with a barbell. You can do with a weighted dip. We can do it that way. So the problem we run into is that when you start trying to do them with one arm to get the same resistance, not saying that that's not an option. If you have access to no weights, if you're stuck in a prison cell, okay, but I can assure you the overwhelming majority of you out there are not stuck in a prison cell. You have access to weights, and if you're trying to train and you're sitting around watching YouTube videos all day and you can't afford a gym membership, or you can't afford to get some weights, I don't know, maybe it's time to reprioritize what you're doing a little bit. Maybe you need to work on getting yourself financially a little more stable so that you can get access to the proper equipment to train instead of wasting a lot of extra hours trying to do conditioning type exercises that aren't going to give you the same results. Use that same time to work a job every week and you'll be able to afford a gym membership in no time. Just throwing that out there. Or you'll be able to afford to have your own equipment at home. Hell, even a dipping and chin-up station, and get some weights to add to it. Get a lifting belt. Because again, I train at home. I have a pretty extensive free weight home gym. But yeah, you run into the issues of muscle imbalances trying to do them one arm. And again, it's better than nothing. But if we're trying to maintain good muscle balance, unilateral balance for performance and injury prevention and everything else, that's not the way to do it. You're going to end up with one side bigger or stronger than the other because you're going to subconsciously load it differently. Unless you go through a lot of trouble to put more effort on the weaker side, it's going to lead to imbalances. So when we start looking at this, the most elegant solution is, of course, the weighted dip. The weighted dip was invented because lifters many years ago realized very quickly bodyweight exercises are great. Being able to load them is important. The push-up just doesn't work. They had problems with wrist. They had problems with safely loading. And again, you can argue about loading it however you want, but it's a higher risk than just about any other exercise you're going to try to load. Because you basically are forced to put the weight on your back in some manner. It can shift, it can slide. You have to have someone help you to get any appreciable weight. It's just not efficient. It's not safe. It's not convenient to do it safely in any manner. It just isn't. We have other options that were developed that are far superior, that have been used for generations. Since before any of us were ever born, people already invented solutions to replace this stuff. And the weighted dip is number one because, again, it uses your entire body weight, right? We're still doing a chest and tricep based exercise. It's still similar, just at a different angle to the push-up. In fact, we can, in theory, actually do more range of motion in some cases because of the hand placement in the bars. So we can get a better myotatic or stretch reflex. We have unlimited loading capacity, again, assuming we have equipment that can handle it. Like in my case, my dipping bars that I have that attach to my rack are rated to hold up to 500 pounds safely. All right, if you can do dips with 500 total pounds, that includes your body weight plus the plates, you are insanely strong, right? Almost no one can do that. That's a very rare individual, even amongst serious lifters. So there's your solution right there. Easy loading. You get a chain and a belt made for it. You hook plates on it. You jump up and you do dips. All right, that is your elegant, most simple solution. Right, that's the simple solution. The dip was created because of the problems with the push-up. And dipping stands are available everywhere. You can buy them online. You can get ones that just sit on their own. You can buy ones that attach to your rack. The majority of gyms have one. And a lot of gyms have big commercial grade ones that will hold extremely heavy weights. Some of theirs could probably hold 1,000 pounds. You see at bigger gyms. So you have access to dips. Just do dips. Problem solved. This is a superior exercise in every way. Loading, safety, everything else. Easier on your wrist, and it's still a bodyweight exercise. There is your bodyweight movement to replace it. And as far as general strength goes, the barbell bench press is a perfect replacement. Yes, it doesn't move the body through space. Yes, you get less core activation, but we don't have an ambiguous range of motion. It can be done safely. The equipment is readily available. Almost every person's home gym and almost any gym you visit anywhere in the world will have multiple bench press stations. These are easy solutions. The only disadvantage we're arguing about, we have all these other negatives. The only thing people might say is, well, you do get a plank thrown in with the bench press. But that's not enough to justify all the other nonsense that goes with it. Sorry, I meant to say push-up. So all in all, when people ask me, why don't you ever recommend push-ups? Because I don't see the point, because I recommend people do bench press. I recommend people do weighted dips. I recommend people do floor presses, right? With these things available, there's no real need for the push-up. The push-up is a prison exercise. That's what it is. Accept it. Or it's a conditioning tool, right? It's a conditioning exercise. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.